that, ladies and gentlemen, I will now request Mr. Clay Stranger, Principal, Rocky Mountains Institute, United States of America, to please address all of us. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome once again Mr. Clay Stranger.
Good morning. Thanks for the chance to share a couple of thoughts on India's electric mobility transformation. I've been working in the electric mobility field for about a decade and have been supporting Government of India and other partners on electric mobility research and strategy for the last 3 years. I see India's commitment and future surrounding electric mobility more as the outcome of a convergence of forces than as a top-down policy decision. So I see it really as the intersection of global trends and India's development moment that'll unlock high shares of electric mobility in India. Take for a second batteries. 2 years ago, we published a report with Niti Aayog called India's Energy Storage Mission that suggested that if you add India's volume and scale in demand for new batteries, by 2030, we could realize global prices as low as $73 a kilowatt hour. We attracted kind of a lot of heat for that paper. People thought it wasn't possible. A couple weeks ago, Bloomberg New Energy Finance, including some of India's new demand, suggests that advanced lithium-ion batteries will hit $63 a kilowatt hour by 2030, dipping below $100 a kilowatt hour by 2024. So India's scale, I think, is what makes it super exciting as a geography to really lead on this transition. What's really important to us as we think about this are economic thresholds, and it's where a lot of our modeling and research goes into play. Where do the economic thresholds exist where policymakers can understand that threshold and can steer towards it, knowing that with targeted interventions, they can achieve that threshold and let the market take over. So we look at that across segments. We've done a lot of modeling work on two-wheelers, on three-wheelers, on cars, and on buses. Let's take buses for a second. If you imagine that this country has about 1.6 million buses currently, that's all forms of buses, school buses, public buses, private buses, inner-city and intra-city buses. Terry's forecast model shows that latent demand and growth in demand could require 3.6 million buses in India by 2030. So imagine that those 2 million new buses that will be added or could be added between now and 2030 were electrified. And that may be a bold assumption given that some use cases don't support electrification, but let's just imagine that that we could electrify 2 million buses, 2 million new buses in India between now and 2030. And imagine, conservatively again, a battery price of 100 to 150 kilowatt hours. Just that demand and just the value, the market value of those batteries in India would be between 40 and 60 billion US dollars. As we've looked at those battery packs, and again in the India Energy Storage Mission report, we found that up to 70% of the value of those batteries can be captured just by manufacturing packs in India. And so we suggest in that report a phased strategy which is consistent with the Cabinet's recent approval of the battery storage mission, a phased approach to manufacturing that invests heavily in pack development immediately while investing in research and development to support the manufacturing of cells over time. We're also tracking a number of other battery technologies that would be highly disruptive. For example, one company we know about based in Boston has demonstrated solid-state batteries with high enough energy density for mobile application that at scale could hit $30 a kilowatt hour by 2030. Still some conditions and some eventualities that are to be worked out, but we see new battery technology coming faster than we expect. And while China may have the noose on lithium-ion supply chain, we think India's moment for solid-state batteries is one that needs to be paid very close attention to. Now let's talk about FAME just for a minute, because as we advise the government and as we talk to industry, FAME is meant to be catalytic, not direct in its impact. But its direct impact also could be pretty significant. We've done some modeling just in the last week. If you look at the 10 lakh two-wheelers, the 5 lakh three-wheelers, the 55,000 cars and the 7,000 buses that FAME directly incentivizes, over the lifetime of those vehicles, imagine that they're all captured in the next 3 years, or that they're all deployed in the next three years. They have the opportunity to displace 40 million barrels of oil, worth about 2.6 billion US dollars at today's oil price. Those are real numbers, but they're a drop in the bucket compared to the catalytic effect and the order of magnitude effect that we could see if you're able to reach 30% sales for cars, 40% sales for buses, and up to 80% sales for 2- and 3-wheelers by 2030. A little bit on the focus of shared mobility as it relates to electric. In my country, in the United States, personal vehicles sit unused between 95 and 97% of the time. So when we look at it, at least in the US, we consider private vehicle ownership as a highly irrational decision, but a highly behaviorally driven one. It's the second largest household asset after the home in the United States, and it's utilized roughly 3 to 5% of the time. There's really no other distortion like that in consumerism or in markets that we can relate to. So really what that comes down to is the convenience of service and the quality of service and user experience that shared modes can deliver. So that means super high priority on cleanliness, on convenience, and on user experience will support shared mobility, which in turn can help unlock some of the economics of electric mobility. You know, lastly, I just want to say that smart cities really are already acting as testing grounds for these solutions. Rocky Mountain Institute, where I work, has a program in India called the Urban Mobility Lab, where Niti Aayog announced a grand challenge to integrate solutions in a single city quickly to test, learn, and where things work, scale more broadly in India. Pune in Maharashtra won that challenge, and we've launched the Urban Mobility Lab there. The next lab will take place in Delhi, likely in June. And so for industry or for civil society or government representatives here, if you're interested in participating in that, we welcome your interest and expression of participation. And lastly, I just want to say I trust India will surprise us in its progress and its capabilities in the deployment of electric mobility. And in terms of India's stage of development, aligned with the convergence of global forces and the forward cost curve of the technologies that underlie electric mobility, I think India will surprise all of us in what it's capable of doing. Thank you.